Yes, folks, it's Thursday. It's 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm Fred McMurray, which means this must be... All right, ladies, we're back for another episode of, and I won't play the music again until the end, but we're back for another episode of Pillars of Franchising. Ooh.
Yes. Happy Friday Eve.
Happy Friday Eve.
As always on Pillars, it's Friday Eve.
Yes, that's why I like this show, because we can always get ready for the weekend.
Well, speaking of that, Kristin, not this weekend, but next weekend, you and I have something fun coming up.
We do. And the thing is, I wanted to cue that up, talking about how so many people are itching to get out of corporate America, right? Because most people, like myself, are looking to find some kind of work-life balance, set their own schedule, be able to kind of decide what they want to do with their day, end their day when they want to, only sometimes to find that the day doesn't really end when you want it to. And you bring a lot of work home and you never stop thinking about the office. And sometimes that work-life balance gets out of whack, right? And the one thing that you luckily shared with me was the perfect opportunity to unplug, recharge, and reset the mindsets. So why don't you tell everybody what we are doing next weekend?
We are so excited because we are going to go on a retreat that is specifically designed for women business owners in South Florida in Fort Myers. Woo-hoo. And it is a mindset reset. It's going to be very low key, lots of beach time, little drink here or there, but also here or there, just here or there, not too many. But it's an opportunity to sort of be with other women who are driven and engaged to do things, but also need a minute to step back and maybe reevaluate where their business is going. And there's some, exercises to help clarify, what you want for the next coming, 2022, and spend some time brainstorming with other women who are in similar positions, not only with their businesses, but balancing family life and trying to get some downtime. And so Nancy Corpenning, who is the owner of CEO School for Women, is hosting it.
Yes.
And is a good friend of mine and a great business coach. And she has put this together for a select group of women. So
I cannot wait. So first of all, when you're here in Chicago and it's like a drizzly 54 degrees and your bones start to ache because you can feel Ray's favorite season creeping in on you, right? Nothing sounds better than the warm sand and on your feet and the sunshine on your shoulders. So that's like the first thing. To me, that's like therapy. But it's really funny because the last couple of weeks I've been saying it, and actually this morning my son said it to me as he was begging to stay home from school. He's like, Mom, if the world could just stop for a day and let me catch up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been saying that for like the last 2 weeks. And I don't know if it's the adjustment coming out of COVID where everything slowed down. And then all of a sudden it was like, ready, set, go. And everything kind of turned back to normal and we're at full throttle right now. And we're trying to adjust. But holy crap. I'm like, just stop. Just give me even I would take 8 hours, right? Just let me, I feel like I need to catch my breath. And normally I'm doing 6 things at once, everything's good. And now I'm like, oh, I need a timeout. Give me a timeout chair. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am too. And what everybody talks about work-life balance, but I have this theory that there is no such thing as work-life balance. What there is the ability to prioritize. Yeah. And so if, we had 5 children at home at one point, now we're down to really none. We're empty nesting. Oh. But there were times when we couldn't make it to everything. But if someone needed something, somebody was sick or hurt or had a car accident or had an awards ceremony. We were going to drop what we were doing and leave it. So they knew that they were a priority, even if the time didn't feel balanced. And I think as women a lot, we don't balance that time to include ourselves,
right?
To refill the cup, as you like to say.
Yep.
And this kind of weekend, away from anybody else needing any kind of attention, work or family or anything else, is going to be something that's really rejuvenating.
That's awesome. And so I think the reason we wanted to share this with you is, so if you are a small business owner, if you're a franchise owner out there, the one thing I really missed, and I can't believe it's been 15 years that I've been out of corporate America owning my own business now. It's insane how fast time goes. But, you know, in corporate America, there were always these training classes we went to, right? And every year you had this big, you know, managers meeting you had to go to. But then when you own your own business, like in a franchise setup, you may have your annual conventions for a couple days, but there's really not a lot out there where people remind you to or force you to reinvest in yourself. And so if you're looking at adjusting from the corporate world into franchise ownership, don't forget to schedule some of that time. And I know, you know, our good friend David Kagjanich, he's really good at scheduling time for himself, working with business coaches and things of that nature. And I think it really makes a difference on your outlook, not only on life, but how you deal with your businesses and things of that nature. So that's my tip of the day. And so next
week, Nancy puts these on a couple of times a year. So if we have any women business owners who are looking for a community of women business owners to escape the world with, you can look it up at ceoschoolforwomen.com. There's a sign up link. I think you could even do a last minute sign up for this retreat, but she's doing another one in the spring. Just putting it out there for you.
Yay. All right, good. We'll put it in the 2022 budget.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That was the word on the street.
Yeah.
Ray. Hi, Ray.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Enjoying this wonderful weather we're having, except for it's rainy, but I mean, 55 degrees is like perfect. You know,
yes.
You can actually walk outside and not break out in a sweat.
With your flannel on, all cozy.
Can't wait for the snow to come.
Yes, I'm sure. It's Halloween.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's getting here slowly but surely, and then we'll send it off to Michigan.
Awesome. Who's joining us today?
Wow, we have some fantastic guests. Two great people. Ron Feldman is the Chief Development Officer of Apple Pie Capital.
Ooh.
And also joining us is Steve White, and he is the president of PuroClean, and he's also chairman of VetFran, and that is one of the reasons we're going to talk to these gentlemen as to how their involvement is with VetFran.
Awesome. Awesome.
Take it away, Kristin.
Okay, great. So as everybody is aware, this month we're focusing on, of course, all things franchising. Franchising being franchisees, franchisors, support systems and vendors of franchises, and cause-based marketing, as well as different systems and ways in which we can give back to the communities in which we live. And so Ron and Steve, obviously for us, this was a great couple of folks to have on the show today. Ron, Apple Pie in the Sky guy, tell us what you have for us today. What do you do for our listeners? Who do you give money to?
Well, unfortunately, we don't give money to anyone. We lend.
Oh, darn.
Nice try. So Apple Pie is the only franchise exclusive lender in the country that I know. We don't lend anywhere else.
Awesome.
I'm a franchising guy. I've been a franchisee 3 times. And I learned how to lend money in the early 2000s, and I've been doing it ever since. And Apple Pie is really a brand-focused first lender. So we identify great brands. We call them exceptional brands.
Okay.
And we build a relationship with those brands. and try to be a capital solution provider for anything a franchisee needs, whether it's a remodel, a new unit, an acquisition, or they're selling and they need to get the buyer financed. So that's what Apple Pie's mission is.
Okay.
It was formed in 2015. I joined as an advisor back then, and I was connived into joining the company full time a couple of years later. So I've been involved for 6.5 years, been chief development officer for 4.5 years. And the exciting news is in 2021, we crossed the $1.2 billion Lent mark.
Wow, nice.
With an average loan size of about $700,000, you can do the math and know that's a lot of transactions.
Holy smokes.
We were very heavily involved in PPP.
Uh-huh.
Some people like me for that, some people hate me for that, but it was a necessary evil for all of us.
Yeah.
And really bailed out a lot of small business owners, especially in the franchise community. I've got to give a shout out to the IFA.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was on those calls in March of 2020 with the IFA and Senator Marco Rubio's office, figuring out how to structure PPP. I was on the call where we said, what if we created a loan that was forgivable?
Right.
And IFA worked very hard to make sure that franchisees got special exemptions because there were limits to the number of employees. It was changed the number of employees per location. Those two words really saved a lot of multi-unit franchises.
Well, I can tell you as a franchisee and someone who took advantage of that loan, it was incredible to have that funding available. And I was able to keep almost every single person who worked for me pre-pandemic up until today because we were able to make their checks whole throughout that whole period when we didn't have the list of clients that we had post-pandemic from pre-pandemic. So
everyone likes
my business, that's for sure.
Yeah, everyone likes to complain about it, and they're showing all the different fraud things that happened. They knew there was going to be fraud. They did this in 10 days.
Yeah.
When does our government do anything in 10 days?
Right. Exactly. Well, and at the end of the day, I'm sure there's going to be a way that we all wind up paying it back. And that's no different than a slew of other things we could talk about. But that's another show.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting about Apple Pie right now is, again, we talk about not only the people who are looking to get into different endeavors, leave corporate America for all kinds of different reasons right now, but you also have the post-COVID folks who say, you know what, I've had enough. I'm ready to retire. You have folks that maybe they didn't take advantage of the PPP loan, or maybe they didn't use it properly, or maybe for whatever reason they just want to get out. And so it sounds to me like you are the guy to talk to for folks who want to buy a franchise right now.
Yeah, as long as it's in one of our approved brands. We've lent money to about 200 brands out of 3,800.
Okay.
So, we do have a brand screen that we will only lend in those brands.
Okay.
But they're the brands that you all know.
Right.
And, if it's the third unit for a new franchisor, we're probably not a good fit, but there's other folks that we'll refer you to that are.
Okay.
But, one of the interesting things coming out of COVID, and one of the changes that we made, we try to be as creative as we possibly can. Most banks want to see tax returns to see historical financials.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at someone's 2020 tax return, it's not very pretty for most brands. We actually don't count the months that you were closed.
Awesome.
They're just deleted. And we then annualize the months since you've been open to figure out what your actual projected cash flow is going to be. And that's been very, very, very relevant in certain industries. And, quick service restaurants, you didn't experience any downturn. You actually had an increase in sales during the pandemic. But, in industries like the salon industry, the fitness industry, the personal care franchises that are out there, they all got hit pretty hard. And to your point, there are some folks that want to get out, and there are some opportunistic acquisitions that can be made by other franchisees,
Sure.
and we want to be very relevant to those folks.
That's awesome. And I know that you kind of dropped a line for us on a way that you're interested in a group that you work with in terms of giving back to the community, and that's where Steve White comes in, right, with VetFran. Is that right, Steve?
That's right. You have the VetFran Committee. VetFran Initiative is a part of the International Franchise Association's nonprofit educational foundation.
Awesome. And obviously, okay, I think it kind of is self-explanatory when you say vet in the beginning, right? But tell us a little bit about what you do specifically for the veterans.
Sure. So our military branches have people exiting every day sometimes after a few years, sometimes after a whole career in the military. They're exiting and returning to civilian life. The military has worked really hard in recent years to try and help them with that transition, and they help them with things like resume writing skills and interviewing skills, and they have some job fairs, but those are all things to help them get a job, and none of those teaches them how they might own their own business. So VetFran, as part of the educational foundation, exists to educate military veterans how they might own their own business through the vehicle of franchising. So that's what we do. We educate, and if people are interested, then we make it really easy for them to connect to franchise brands that are members of the VetFran Initiative.
I think that's fantastic. As a veteran myself, I did not take advantage of that. But how could have you? I spent 4 years in the Air Force, and how could you have helped me? You know, would you be involved in trying to find me a franchise, or with financing, helping me with finance? How would that work?
Yep. So we don't do any steering. Our principal outreach is through our website, which is vetfran.org, O-R-G, and that's our principal outreach. And then we communicate, and we try and reach out to people about that website. And within that website, there are a lot of educational resources about where you can find financing all the way to specific brands. And you can take a look at them. VetFran has a star system ranking its franchisors. You have to go through some qualifications to even become a veteran, a member of VetFran, sorry. And if you are interested, you can go through and click on all these different brands and take a look at a little blurb about each brand. And if you have an interest in that particular brand, then you can simply click on a button and it'll take you right to that brand's franchise development website or their main website, whichever one they've got connected. And then you can investigate those things further. So we're all about the education. We don't steer toward any particular brands. We don't steer away from anybody. We just have it out there. And you know, we're starting to do some new things beyond that. But when the pandemic hit, we just went back to basics. I'm a back to basics guy, right? When a crisis happens, you go and shore up the foundation, make sure that's strong. And so we really went back to basics on the VetFran website, and traffic across that website went through the roof. I mean, we saw huge increases in the number of visitors. We saw huge increases in the number of people who went from learning about franchise opportunities right to some brands, directly to a brand site, a member brand site. And it continued all last year, and even into this year. Now we're seeing big increases over the big increases we saw a year ago. Wow. So we're really excited about what it's done. And by the way, this is the 30th anniversary of the VetFran Initiative. So there are not a lot of things in IFA land have been around for 30 years, but VetFran has, and we all take it as a really important work to keep it going, and to keep it going at the very highest possible levels.
I know in my case that would have been extremely helpful if I had known about it at the time, but I wasn't aware of it. And of course, those resources, I took 1.5 years to basically find out what I wanted to do as far as owning a business. And I immediately shifted towards the franchising because I thought that had the best hope for success. And I was right. But my message to other veterans out there is basically take advantage of all of your resources. And this sounds like something that is really something that you need to do.
I'll tell you, I'm a data analytics guy. Kind of forced into being that kind of a persona in the business that I'm in. And I got excited about VetFran in 2008. So, if we all remember, a little crisis happened back then in the financial worlds. And I was meeting with Gordon Logan, who's the founder of Sport Clips. And we were just talking about, Gordon Logan thought this was the best thing that ever happened this downturn for his franchisees because people are going to trade down to get their hair cut. And he was a low cost, option for them. Sorry, Jerry. So I was talking to him and he said, yeah, we have 10% of our franchisees are veterans and he's a veteran. And we go after veterans because veterans know how to follow a playbook. They know how to follow an operations manual, and they don't have to come up with the idea, but they're great at execution. And then I went to another big brand, UPS stores, who said the same thing to me. When I heard it twice from two very smart people, I said, this is probably a good idea. We should get behind it. So that's kind of where I got excited about VetFran.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's a great service that you're providing. We obviously had some great people on here that were veteran-owned franchises and such, and so I always think it's great when we give back to the people who've done so much for our country. So I thank you both for being involved in VetFran. I think it's a great cause for us. So, and how do folks get a hold of either one of you if they'd like to talk to you about either Ron for you with Apple Pie Capital or Steve with you for VetFran?
So my email is real easy. It's ron@applepiecapital.com. Or you can just go to applepiecapital.com and click more info, whatever you want. That's probably the easiest way to find me.
Okay, excellent. And Steve, how about you?
I'm almost as easy as Ron. You need my whole name, Steve White @puroclean.com. So pretty easy, pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. And a shout out to PuroClean because that's your franchise as well. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. PuroClean to me is one of those brands that proves there's a franchise for almost everything these days. And what my franchisees do is water, fire, mold damage cleanup. So when somebody has water or fire or mold damage in their home or in their business or wherever it is, we roll out, and it's an emergency services business. We roll out at all hours of the day and night, and we take care of that because in a lot of cases, when the damage is extreme, that family or that business cannot re-inhabit that space until we do our work. Yeah. So that's what we do every single day.
That's that hard work that really pulls at your heartstrings. I'm sure you walk into disaster all the time. So thank you to you and your team for the kind of work that you do. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And thanks for being involved in VetFran again.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, all the contact information for both of you guys will be on our website. You can also go back and find it again at pillarsoffranchising.com. And Fred, I understand you're going to take us to a commercial here real fast.
Well, actually, wait, there's a couple of questions that have come in from chat. So
excellent. Let's see.
Ooh. So the first one is to Ron, and somebody coming to you for funding, what are they going to need to bring with them? In other words, what types of documentation, things like that, are you going to need before you can help them?
Great question.
Well, the good news is we've got a flow that you can follow. So you're not ever going to email anything to us. We don't like having anything with any numbers on it flowing through email systems. That's, a data breach waiting to happen. So we will walk you through our process, the digital process. The common things you're going to have are your assets, your liabilities, And if you're an existing franchisee, your existing financials could be a QuickBooks P&L, balance sheet. If you're buying a business, a letter of intent would be very helpful. If you're developing a unit, at least a letter of intent to do a lease. You don't necessarily need the lease per se, but it's hard to underwrite a loan if you don't know what the rent's going to be.
Amen.
And ultimately a business plan, unless you've already got 6 units, then we know what your business plan is. The typical things you would need for a banker, but we're going to actually prompt you to upload all those things. We also have the ability for you to just give us the ability to go into your QuickBooks if you're on QuickBooks Enterprise and you don't have to do anything. You can just pull what you need.
Nice. Follow-up question on that is, for the person that wants to buy a franchise, which is, I'm assuming, our chatter, is there a minimum credit score that you would need?
Well, if you're going for an SBA loan, it's different than if you're going for one of our conventional loans. Our conventional loans, again, are only made to those brands that we have approved. Our minimum credit score is 680, but our average credit score is 770. But we'll look at anyone with a 680. More important than the credit score is if you're coming out of corporate America and you have a big personal nut that you have to cover every month, and you're buying a franchise that you're not going to make any money from for the first year in one of these membership-based businesses, we need to see that you have the cash to survive until you're going to get there. And even if your credit score, we've turned down people with 800 credit scores and approved people with 650 credit scores. It really depends on the whole picture, not just the score.
Excellent. Now, that you actually provided a perfect segue into the question for Steve, which is, if somebody wanted to buy a PuroClean, what's the upfront cost? And then we, of course, add the Ray multiplier, which is 2.5 times.
Right. So, if you want to become a PuroClean franchise owner, I'd like to see you have $150,000 liquid. We have an equipment package that's a little less than $60,000. You need a truck that's a little over $40,000, and our franchise fee, which is $55,000. And then, as Ron so importantly pointed out, efficient working capital. Now, revenue flows pretty fast in our business because of the nature of it, but I want to make sure people are coming in and they have the proper cushion to get a good start.
Okay. Yeah. And our chatter seems to like that, and our chatter agrees you should be doing radio commercials. I think we want you to do one for Pillars of Franchising.
I hear it multiple times a month. My most frequent response is, I have a voice for TV but a face for radio.
And now you know why I'm behind the camera.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. We so appreciate your time. We look forward to see you again real soon. And this has been Pillars of Franchising. Of course, we're not even close to being done today, but you are joining us here with our $1 Million Franchise Mentoring Program, where you have wisdom and experience from Ray Pillar, David Kagjanich, and Jerry Akers, and myself, Kristin Selmeczy. Here on Pillars of Franchising, we offer advice and any kind of questions that you might have, from running a business to buying a business. We are here as your franchising resource. Please, at any point in time, go online. You can fill out a "What's Your Dream?" The Dream Starts Here form to be on the show if you're a franchisee or franchisor or franchise supplier. You can also apply there if you'd like to buy a franchise. We are here to help you with that process as well. And again, you are listening to Pillars of Franchising.
So I believe that Elizabeth has a shout out or two. So why don't we bring Elizabeth in for a second? Elizabeth, who you shouting out to?
I'm shouting out right now to, since we talked about veterans and VetFran, Laura Spalding is someone that has been on the show to promote her franchise giveaway for veterans. They're still looking for applicants. The door has not shut yet. So if you are a veteran, log on to franchise@spaldingdcon.com And you can apply. They're doing a giveaway worth, I think she said about, what was it, $50,000?
Yeah, $50,000 the franchise fee.
Yeah, they're waiving the franchise fee for a qualified applicant. So she would like to encourage vets, just like the Vet Fran group does, to become business owners. So be sure to look out for that.
Yes,
And she does great work. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And now a moment to pay our bills.
Oh, sure. Throw that one at me.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvyne, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvyne.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvyne.com.
Well, the timing of that was almost uncanny, wasn't it?
Hey, I try.
Unfortunately, there she is.
Sometimes I succeed.
Timing.
Sometimes I fail.
We are welcoming Michele Rempel. Hi, Michele from Westvyne Media Marketing.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, that timing was pretty spectacular.
Yes, it was. We wanted to bring you on for a few moments today to talk about cause-based marketing.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you do for beginning franchisees in terms of getting their word out and the kind of results that you see?
Yeah, so cause-based marketing isn't new, right? A lot of small businesses and large businesses have been aligning themselves with some sort of charitable cause or organization for a long, long time. They've seen the advantages of doing that, not only just to their bottom line, but also just to be a good steward in the community and taking care of the community in some way, shape, or form. So, you know, there's a lot of great examples of that. You know, one that has kind of been more popular in recent years is, for example, the Tom shoes, right? They donate a pair of shoes for every pair that they sell. That's just one example. But you know, those of you that are involved, Ray and Kristin and Molly Maid Corporate aligns themselves with the Molly Maid Foundation, which, you know, works with domestic violence shelters, and they devote the whole month of this month, October, for highlighting that cause and collecting items for you know, for the shelters and money and percentage of cleans. So it's not something new. However, in the last couple of years, businesses have really been trying to find ways to not only stay afloat, which is not funny, but it's, you know, kind of apropos, but also just to find ways to stand out, and at the same time acknowledge that a lot of people in the community have been hurting and just, you know, really struggling. So cause-based marketing has kind of become more the term has maybe become a little more popular lately just because of that. And it's just a really we've seen many of our clients talk about, you know, we really have a heart for X, Y, or Z, and we'd like to figure out a way to not only benefit them, but also kind of align ourselves with them and get the word out. So that's what that's all about.
Yeah, the one thing that I really like about Westvyne, and far before we started doing things with, you know, the show and everything, what I like about it is, although owning this particular franchise, there is a franchisor supported cause, if I wanted to go out and like I support the local baseball teams, right? That's one of the things that I do.
Right.
I can always call you as a franchisee and say, hey, I'm supporting this team. Can you put it out there on Twitter and on Facebook for me?
Sure.
And as a franchisee, it doesn't cost a lot of money to put out those localized social media spots and get yourself really engaged in the community. And that was the one thing I really wanted to point out about having a company like yours. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but the reach that you have close within your community, whether you're a small business, whether you're a franchisee, for really a low amount of money, you can have a big community impact. And so there, as we all know, or most of us at least on the show know, there are a lot of franchisors out there who don't have hundreds and hundreds of franchises in a system. There are a lot of franchisors out there that don't have a corporate run or corporate sponsored cause or charity. That doesn't mean that giving back to your community is not important. So, and I think that that's where working with a company like Westvyne becomes very important. And don't forget, you know, if any of you out there already have a franchise or a small business, you've got to be getting the phone calls and the letters from your local schools, from your local sports teams like I do.
All the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, and right now I get the letter from the police department. It's, you know, getting to be Christmas time, right? And they want me to buy, you know, the Christmas presents for under the tree, which we do every year. Those are great things to put out there. Again, it may seem a little bit like you're tooting your own horn, but you want your community to know that as a business, you're not just taking money out of the community, but you're giving back.
Right.
And so some may say, oh, well, you're just tooting your own horn. Oh, you're just doing it for the press. No, we're really not. But it's important that people understand that you are trying to be a part of the fabric of the community.
Right. Yeah. I think it's important to align your business with your own, you know, align your business with an organization that shares your values or shares even, or has values that are really important to your team members, right? So,
sure.
You know, if I'm, you know, going back to the Molly Maid example, most of the Molly Maid teams are female, right? A lot of them may be single moms that just, you know, could have been in the past struggling with whatever. And so knowing that their company that they're working for is doing something about helping other, usually females, not always, but usually females, usually parents, with going through a really difficult situation, that's something that a lot of those team members feel like they can get behind. So it's really, you know, it'd be kind of weird if Molly Maid was selecting an organization or a cause that just didn't really have anything,
sure,
any kind of alignment or anything to do with it, and then you could tell, oh, that was definitely selected by the owner, and the team
right.
had don't care, had no input, had, you know, nothing to it. So
sure,
it's really important to align your whole team. That makes it less look like,
right.
oh, you're just tooting your own horn, and more
right.
about, you know, this means something to all of us.
Yeah.
Not just
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about, you know, maybe the top 3 or 4 platforms that you would help get word out to their clients about some of the things or some of the charity work that they're doing? What are kind of the 3 maybe most popular?
Yeah, so you know, of course, an obvious one is Facebook, and closely aligned with that is Instagram. You're kind of, you know, now that they're owned by the same company and there's a lot of cross posting that you can do to both, and now there's cross marketing with ads and things like that, you can reach two kind of demographics. There is some overlap, but, you know, Facebook tends to be now runs more, you know, older, and then Instagram runs a bit younger, usually, with overlap. So that's an obvious one. But YouTube as well can be really cool if you're maybe taking a video of the fundraising drive or the giveaway or the great big check that you're donating or whatever. Taking that video, posting it to Facebook and Instagram, but also posting it to YouTube can be pretty cool, and it just stays on there forever, and people can go check it out and see what happens, or, you know, hey, look, I'm on this, you know, we're on this video, and the team members, if they're on it, could share it or whatever. So those things are highly shareable. Those are probably your top three. Now, as far as the organization is concerned, sharing that at LinkedIn is also a good thing. So those would be the top four. And then for some people that are really involved in the more local, there's Nextdoor, you can do that. You might even post it to your Google My Business page, things like that. So there's lots of options to get the word out.
Awesome. And would you like to give everybody a way to contact you in case, obviously, if they're starting a new business, they need to set up Facebook pages and LinkedIn pages. How do they get in touch with you at Westvyne?
Yeah, so mine is pretty easy too. Mine's Michele with one L, Michele at Westvyne, and it's WESTBYNE.com, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thank you. And of course, we'll have it on the website at pillarsoffranchising.com. And I thank you. I know in the future, we're going to have you back on talking about the importance of having the proper website out there in terms of Facebook and LinkedIn and all those great places if you're going to start a business. So I appreciate your time and coming by once again on Pillars of Franchising. We hope you have a great day, and we look forward to having you again in the future.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. She's on mute again.
Geez, you'd think I would learn a lesson, right? Anyway, I was saying thank you to Michele for that wrap up to our month of cause marketing and all the guests that we've had this month who have shared their passions for philanthropy and how they support each one of the organizations that they do. We also want to mention we had a lot of comments in the first segment, which was really fun. So if you would like to call in during the show and ask questions in real time, our number is 323-580-5755. Again, that is 323-580-5755. And up next, we've got Dave Kagjanich. He is going to talk about strategies for success. So stay tuned.
Hey, David.
Hey, look at that. I popped up on the screen right away today.
You did. And you don't have mute on.
No.
Just kidding, Elizabeth.
Well,
she's going to hurt me later. I'm going to the Osho with her next weekend, which means I may not come back.
Yeah.
I have to behave myself. Hey, I'm dying to know about some of your strategies for success.
Yeah, well, I think one of them was just with our segment I thought that was really cool that people, are wondering if they can finance their business. There's financing options out there. I know that's usually one of the biggest questions everybody has is how am I going to pay for this thing? How am I going to get this open? So I thought that was cool. And obviously all of us should get behind any program that helps and benefits veterans. I thought that was fantastic. So cool double combo on that one. I enjoyed that. But yes, so I think today is going to be kind of the last in this little bit of a series, kind of what I was talking about as far as the dream business. We reference almost every show with how many people are leaving corporate America. So this is more of a reality check, I think, because it's easy to say this is what I'm going to do. I'm leaving and I'm going to open up my own business, right? That's the easy part.
Yeah.
So what's the strategy that gets behind it, right? And I think a lot of people, when they make that move, they get stuck all of a sudden because it becomes daunting.
Yes.
And then they start hearing a little chirping in their ears from people going, what are you doing? Why did you quit that secure job? And now, businesses fail, and they get a little bit of cold feet, and then they wait. But you can't just wait, right? You have to work for it, and you have to get going. And you have to put some processes in place and have some strategies. So I think where I got this from was I looked at this study, and I saw this study came across, and it says 7% of the people take action daily toward the attainment of their goal. So at least one goal. So their goal. So I know a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'd love to own my business, own my own business," and they don't do anything towards getting started.
Right. So
I think that's where franchising comes in. It takes a lot of the unknown away. So it's here. This is a Mark Twain quote, and I think anyone who's listening can relate to this or should relate to it. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks, and then starting on the first one.
I like
How many of us, when we got started, didn't know what first step to take?
Yep.
Right? And I think a lot of people might be sitting in there, and that's why we exist. We exist with the franchise operation, the opportunities, and the mentoring that we can provide. To me, that's step one. That makes it so much easier, and someone's sitting there going, what am I going to do? What do I have to do? What's my first step?
Yeah. You know what's funny about that is when I decided to buy a business, luckily I had just come out of a planning position, and I was doing Gantt charts. And so I literally did a Gantt chart from when my projected opening date was, and I backtracked into what could be my last day of work, to what was going to be my training dates, what was like, everything went on a Gantt chart, and it put things in perspective. And I may have been off a day or two one way or another, but at least it got me started, and I had deadlines, right? Like I had a plan.
Yeah, I think that's great. But, and then here's the other thing. I'm sure when you're doing that, you're saying, okay, kind of, where am I right now?
Yep.
Where do I want to be? And what's that look like when I get there? What's that end start? We talk about that, start with the end in mind. What does that look like? And then what steps do I take to get from where I am today to my dream, to that future, to that vision that I have for myself?
Yeah.
And as you said, you took steps right away to say, okay, here's where it's exiting. But you had some steps before that, right? I mean, you already kind of just did what I talked about, right? You didn't just say, all right, I'm done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you're doing a corporate exit, you know, many people, at least I did, right? You know, I had stocks I had to exercise, and there were certain things and timelines associated with that. So you had to be very careful with how you did it. And it does take planning. You don't just up and quit one day.
No, but on the flip side of that, make sure you're examining, you know, your actions, what you want to do, because there's so many people that won't get started unless it's perfect. I'll get started when. I'm not going to quit until, you know, those types of things. You're going to be sitting there and then worrying about it 20 years from now going, I should have done that, because getting started is that first step, because so many of it, it's never going to be perfect. I'll say that right now. It's never, you can always find something that's going to say, yeah, I can get started, but this is going on, or I'd have to do this.
Right.
You know, and we talked about, I mean, you just talked about what you did. I mean, you know, we had a garage sale, right? We sold everything. You know, I mean, we could have easily said, wow, why would we quit two really secure corporate jobs to go do the riskiest business in the world, right? Basically. Well, you know, so we had that thought, and we had a strategy in place saying, this is what we're going to do, but we had to take that first step. And the first step was investing into a franchise. That made it all easier. That made it a lot easier. So, you know, consider all the options, use all the resources available to you. We just had a great financing option to us. And then the other thing is embrace the challenges. And one of those challenges, you have to remove all the like non-essential things in your life. And it's, you have to come to grips that you're going to give up some stuff. You're going to give up some things to achieve what you want to do. And if you're not willing to give up some things that you really like, but they don't help you in achieving your goal, then you have to have a reality check with yourself, because to make that switch, you're going to give up something.
Absolutely.
So have a strategy, consider all the options, get into franchising and get mentored, right?
Yes.
That's the first step. And understand some of the challenges that you're going to have to embrace. And that includes giving up some things, and most importantly, get started. It's never going to be a perfect time.
Very good advice, David. I really like that you pointed that out, that it's never going to be perfect. I really appreciate your time that you put into this subject, and we can't wait to see what you come back with next week. And as always, David is our resident expert on leadership and getting things done. and all of the stuff that so many people forget is much needed in business. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome.
And next up we have Jerry Akers. Oh no, we don't. It's Elizabeth, but she's on mute again.
Yeah, it's my thing now. I'm just going to stick with it. At any rate, David's conversation made me think of having kids. You're never perfectly prepared to have a baby, but we do it because we know we want one, right? So if you are ready to start your franchising dream, go to thepillarsofranchising.com and fill out our form. And check the box that says, I want to buy a franchise. There are a lot of other options. So if you fall into those categories, if you want to be a sponsor, if you need a mentor, check those boxes. You can check multiple boxes. So go to pillarsoffranchising.com. You should get a pop-up, and we also have a contact us page with those forms. Next up, Jerry Akers is going to talk to us about the opportunities arising out of boomers leaving the market.
Jerry, I love how dedicated you are, because this is the second call today I've been on with you, and you poor man are in your car roving the universe. Where did we catch you today?
You know, I'm between my home market and the state capitol. I had an opportunity today to meet with the lieutenant governor and the leadership of NFIB to talk about business-related bills that'll be coming up this year, and and insiders, franchisees' thoughts on those, and helping change the direction of what might end up be a bill that impacts every citizen of the state. So I was there, and I found a parking lot there to do the first call, and I'm about halfway home and pulled over into a parking lot to do the second call. And Kristin, David said, when you're doing your planning for a franchise, you've got to have the end in mind and talk about the journey and things like that. Give some thought to it. If somebody told me that I'd be squeezing in minutes in a journey to do a call from a parking lot of a gas station or a restaurant on a regular basis, I'm not sure I'd remember to put that on my journey.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would either. But I have to tell you, I think it speaks volumes at how dedicated you are to doing whatever you can to get on the show and share the information you have. And again, I know I speak on behalf of everyone on this show and everyone who listens to you, and people who are out there working in franchises. Your dedication to all the small businesses and franchise owners out there is really appreciated. Going to Washington, going to the capital of your state, and working for all of us to make sure that the voices of business is heard is so very important. And I'll say what you always say, which is make sure that you sign up and get involved in the IFA and NFIB, and make sure that your voice is also heard. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's easy to sit back and be working in your business and complaining about taxes and regulations and what goes on in your state capital or DC. But if you really want to let people know what's going on, they don't know what it takes to run a business and make payroll. Many of them went straight from college into, somewhere working in legislatures, and then they got elected and they kept moving. So they may have never done anything except hold a job and then, go to the state capitol or DC. So if business owners don't come and tell them what the impact of their thoughts are on small business, which, by the way, impacts every citizen in a state in some way, shape, or form, then you get what you get, right? So,
right.
But Kristin, we got a lot to talk about in a few minutes here related to business itself. So, lead on.
Yeah, let's talk about how someone, we got listeners out there right now. Obviously, we had some folks chatting with us online today, which is great. And their questions lead right into the kinds of things that I want to talk to you about. So we've got people out there who are thinking about buying a business, buying a franchise. How would I go about knowing how much a franchise should cost me? We know it depends on the type of franchise, right? Obviously, McDonald's is sky high, but maybe buying a local Great Clips is a different ball game versus buying a local, Dunkin' Donuts is a different ball game. How do I go about even having an idea about that? And when I get an idea, how do I evaluate that to know if it's accurate?
Well, there's that's a broad subject, so we'll try and narrow it down and take it in bites, right? So if you're just starting your journey, the first place I would go to is Google. because you can Google all kinds of things. You can look at Entrepreneur Magazine's top 500 franchise list they put out every year and start segmenting that. On that list, it would give you some ideas of the ranges of valuation of new franchisees if you were to buy, or franchises if you were to buy one. You can Google the franchise itself. Many times on their homepage, they will give you an idea what kind of range it looks like. You know, there's a lot of web pages out there that can help guide you through that process, whether it be for new franchises or even existing franchises in some cases. So a starting point is just to get some kind of an idea of what they think it's worth. Now, if you're talking about an existing franchise, in many cases, that's going to be valued on a multiplier of net profit. And you're not going to know anything about that until you get into a conversation with the broker and eventually the owner. So you should do some research, get to the point where you believe maybe that's something you're interested in. And then if it's an existing one, schedule a call with the broker. We actually have a couple brokers in Pillars, right? You and David are brokers, so they could call you guys and describe what they're looking for, and you could probably give them some kind of an idea, maybe even the specifics of that exact one. So there's a lot of resources out there. Don't sit back and just kind of ponder it. Actually go out and get some data so that you can have some thought processes and make some decisions.
That's very good. And actually, one of the questions from Chatter, and I love that we're having chatters out there right now. What are the top 3 franchise verticals that you like personally right now?
Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot out there.
Yeah.
I love it when our listeners do this, you know. Well, you know, personal service type things. You can look at massage or, you know, I'm in hair and chiropractic, but there's all kinds of personal service things out there. One of the things we know about Americans, we saw it, you know, post-COVID, they immediately went back to their, you know, getting their nails done and their hair done and all those kinds of things because we're kind of addicted to that. So you have a market that's probably never going anywhere. Let's face it, Amazon likely is never going to do hair or massage or any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, you're probably in a market that if you're in personal care, that's going to be around for a long time. The competition is mainly your local competition. It's an all cash market or credit, you know, so you don't have receivables. Those are that would be my number one that I would look at right now is personal care type things. You know, home service type things. Most of us want to take care of our castle. So the things like what you do, Kristin and Ray, those are never going away. We're going to need those kinds of things forever. We had Steve on, you know, cleanup when there's a catastrophe. Those things are going to happen. There's nothing we can do about that. So I really like the things related to home care, upkeep, that kind of stuff. And then the next one is maybe a little surprising because I'll just be upfront. I don't really like food service. I think there's a lot of great models out there that you'll do really well with. I also think you can easily get into one that will do poorly. And it's very competitive. However, COVID taught us that there are some I'll call them fast casual models that just thrived during the COVID and the COVID recovery. And the fact that you didn't have a lot of seating didn't make any difference because most of it was carry out or, you know, a Grubhub or something like that. So that had some resiliency that many other food brands did not have. So for me right now, those are the top 3 that I'm taking a look at for myself and for people that I mentor. And if anybody wants to talk about any of those, I'll be happy to talk about some of the ins and outs.
That's awesome. And the follow-up question for that, and this is again a broad one for you, but I think based on this conversation, you could probably ballpark some of them. And this will be assuming it's a new franchise. Do you have any idea on min-max startup costs?
Yeah, that's a very broad one. And, you know, again, we had 3 categories there and they're going to be different. So fast casual restaurants will have a higher startup cost generally than the other brands that we talked about because, you know, you've got a lot of kitchen equipment and all those kinds of things that go into it.
Real estate, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a broad range of things. And if you were to look into that, I'm guessing most of those are going to be somewhere in the 250 to 500,000 range. And that'll get you set up. Most of them will have some cash flow built into it to get you to the point where you're in business and maybe you're breaking even or close to break even. But that would probably be the range you would look at there, depending on the brand. If you're going to look into something in the personal care side of things, probably, you know, you're looking at about 200 to 400, somewhere in that range. Now, remember, folks, when you're listening out there, much of this will be borrowed capital. So don't get lost in the fact that you don't have $250,000 sitting in your bank account. What you're going to have is decent credit. You're going to have a little longevity where you live, maybe a little bit of experience, not necessarily in the brand that you choose or even the category that you choose, but in business or something like that, to show that you can, read a spreadsheet and make some decisions and those kinds of things. But that's kind of the range I would look at for those categories. But remember, even within each of the categories, there'll be a really broad difference. For instance, if you're making sub sandwiches, you'll need far less kitchen equipment than if you've got a griddle and a fryer and a variety of other things involved in it. So just remember. But the cool thing is, as we talked about before, you can find all of this information readily. I am a personal favorite. My personal favorite is the Entrepreneur magazine, Top 500 Franchises. They rank them every year. They'll show you how many years they've been on the list, what the average cost is, how many units they have, where they're looking for units, all those kinds of things. So for me, that's the number one place I would go to get more information.
Absolutely. And it is true. David and I can both help with that as well. We are certified brokers now. We can certainly go through that with you. We do personality profiles to make sure that we can match the skill sets and the personality traits that you have with a franchise that best fits with those, as well the investment capital that you have. We can match you with lenders and things of that nature to make sure that we find the exact perfect fit for you. So feel free, again, fill out the what's your dream, or the dream starts here on the Pillars of Franchising website. And I think Jerry's got some great information, some of the same things we talked about. And Ray's tip, again, is to make sure whatever they say your costs are, 2.5 times whatever that number is. We found that in pretty much all of our cases to be accurate. So that number is very conservative. So make sure that you take a good hard look at that. Jerry?
Kristin, the last comment I'll make is going to actually reinforce what you just said. When I talk about going to do online research and those kinds of things, many potential franchisees will start trying to save pennies. And by saving pennies, I mean, maybe they want to try and put the deal together themselves or something like that. And they're going to waste not just dollars, but maybe tens of thousands of dollars before they get done. Get somebody experienced in the business, get somebody that knows the brokerage side of things, that has lots of resources and lots of information and can, tie you into some conversations with some experts, and really make sure that you're getting an expert to help you make that final decision. Don't save a couple pennies there, because it'll never work out for you. So do some online research, but then reach out to somebody that actually has some background in it.
Absolutely. Jerry, thank you so much. We can't wait to see you again next week. As always, we appreciate all the time and effort that you put into your portion of the show. And we will see you again next week right here on Pillars of Franchising.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, this has been another great episode of Pillars of Franchising. I would love to thank my $1 Million Mentor team, Jerry Akers, Ray Pillar, David Kagjanich, and our creative director, Elizabeth Denham, and our behind the scenes, Heidi, and as well, obviously, Fred McMurray. And a special shout out to our guests today, Michele Rempel, Steve White with Puro Clean, and of course, Ron Feldman with Apple Pie Capital. Please visit our website, pillarsoffranchising.com. You can find The Dream Starts Here on the lower right-hand corner. And as well, you can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, just about any social media platform you can find. And please be sure to like us, share us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week on the same channel you found us this week at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again.